What if the very foundation of your team is cracking under pressure, leaking goals in the dying minutes of games? And the only way to patch it up is to decide between overpaying for a temporary fix or scouring the market for a gritty, undervalued warrior. That's the brutal dilemma facing the Montreal Canadiens right now. As general manager, Kent Hughes stares down a defensive crisis that could define the trajectory of this franchise. The Habs are a team with electrifying speed and raw talent up front, but when the game turns into a desperate 6-on-5 in the final moments, they're getting carved up like a holiday roast. The question isn't just about who can plug the hole. It's about whether the cost of that solution will mortgage the future of a team still rebuilding its identity. Let's dive into the heart of this storm. The Canadiens' defensive frailty in clutch situations has become a glaring issue, a recurring nightmare that threatens to derail their playoff aspirations. When the opposing team pulls their goalie, flooding the ice with an extra attacker, Montreal's blue line often looks like a disorganized mess, unable to clear the crease or win the physical battles that matter most. It's not a lack of skill, it's a lack of sheer, unapologetic muscle, the kind of presence that sends a message. If you park in front of our net, you're leaving with bruises. This is a new problem for the Habs, but it's one that's reached a boiling point as the team fights to establish itself as a contender in a brutally competitive Eastern Conference. Enter the Philadelphia Flyers and their towering defenseman, Rasmus Ristolainen. At 6 feet 4 inches and 221 pounds, Ristolainen is the kind of player who could theoretically be the enforcer Montreal needs, a physical specimen capable of throwing his weight around and intimidating forwards who dare to linger in the danger zones. The Canadiens' front office reportedly reached out to Philadelphia to inquire about his availability, recognizing that a player's profile could be the missing piece in their defensive puzzle. But here's where the plot thickens into something resembling a corporate shakedown. The Flyers, sensing Montreal's desperation, slapped an astronomical price tag on Ristolainen. A first-round draft pick, a promising young prospect, and an additional lower-round selection. Let that sink in. For a defenseman who, while physically imposing, has often been criticized for inconsistent play and questionable decision-making, the Flyers are demanding a king's ransom. It's not just a trade proposal. It's a declaration of war on Montreal's long-term vision. Why would Philadelphia ask for such an exorbitant return? Simple. They know the Canadiens are in a bind. Hughes and his team are under pressure to show progress this season, to prove that the rebuild is bearing fruit. A playoff push is within reach, but not if the Habs keep hemorrhaging goals in critical moments. The Flyers are banking on Montreal's urgency, hoping to exploit it for a haul that far exceeds Ristolainen's actual value. Let's be clear, Ristolainen isn't a top-pairing defenseman. He's a third-line grinder with size, a player whose analytics often paint a less flattering picture than his physical presence suggests. His career has been marked by stretches of underperformance, particularly in defensive metrics like expected goals against and zone exits. To give up a first-round pick, potentially a future cornerstone of the franchise, plus a prospect who could develop into a star for a player with such a spotty track record, that's not just a gamble. It's a reckless bet that could haunt the organization for years. So, Hughes did what any sane architect of a rebuilding team would do. He walked away. The phone call ended, and the Canadiens refused to be held hostage by Philadelphia's greed. But that decision, while fiscally responsible, leaves Montreal with a gaping hole in their lineup. The need for a physical, crease-clearing defenseman hasn't gone away. If anything, it's become more urgent as the season progresses and the playoff race tightens. Every game where the Habs collapse in the final minutes is a stark reminder that talent alone doesn't win in the NHL. You need grit. You need warriors who are willing to sacrifice their bodies to protect the net. The question now is where to find that kind of player without breaking the bank or compromising the future. This brings us to the alternative path, one that prioritizes value over flash, substance over name recognition. Players like Zach Whitecloud of the Vegas Golden Knights or Luke Schenn, formerly of the Vancouver Canucks and now with the Nashville Predators, represent the kind of blue-collar defensemen who could fill Montreal's needs at a fraction of the cost. Whitecloud, for instance, is a 6 feet 2 inches, 218-pound right-shot defenseman who has proven his worth in high-pressure situations during Vegas's Stanley Cup run. He's not a household name, but he's a reliable stay-at-home defender who excels at clearing the net and winning board battles. His contract is affordable, and acquiring him wouldn't require the kind of assets that would gut Montreal's prospect pool. Similarly, Schenn brings a wealth of experience and physicality, having played over 900 NHL games and consistently delivered as a no-nonsense, hard-hitting presence. Both players embody the worker-bee mentality that the Canadiens desperately need right now. Defensemen who don't care about the spotlight, but will do whatever it takes to protect their goalie. Let's take a step back and analyze why this approach makes more sense for Montreal, not just from a financial standpoint, but from a cultural and strategic one as well. The Canadiens are not a team that can afford to throw away high-end draft picks or top prospects. This is a franchise in the midst of a carefully orchestrated rebuild, one that has prioritized youth development and long-term sustainability over short-term fixes. Players like Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, and Uri Slafkovsky represent the future of this team, and trading away the assets needed to surround them with talent will be a betrayal of the vision Hughes and the staff have worked so hard to implement. Overpaying for a player like Ristolainen would send a dangerous message to the fan base and the locker room that the front office is willing to panic and abandon its principles at the first sign of adversity. Instead, targeting undervalued, hard-working defensemen aligns perfectly with the identity Montreal is trying to build. This is a team that prides itself on resilience, on outworking opponents rather than outspending them. Bringing in a player like Whitecloud or Schenn wouldn't just address the immediate need for physicality. It would reinforce a culture of grit and determination that head coach Martin St. Louis is trying to instill. Imagine the impact on a young roster when they see a veteran defenseman throwing himself in front of shots, battling in the corners, and standing up for teammates without hesitation. That kind of leadership can't be quantified in a trade package, but is invaluable in shaping the character of a team on the rise. Of course, there's a counter-argument to consider. Some might argue that a player like Ristolainen, despite his flaws, brings a level of intimidation and experience that cheaper options can't match. There's a psychological edge to having a known enforcer on the blue line, someone whose mere presence can deter opposing forwards from taking liberties in front of the net. And in the high-stakes environment of the playoffs, should the Canadiens get there, that kind of edge can be the difference between a win and a loss. But at what cost? The Flyers' asking price isn't just steep. It's a direct threat to the future competitiveness of the team. A first-round pick could be used to draft the next great Habs defenseman, someone who could anchor the blue line for a decade. A prospect could develop into a star forward to complement Suzuki and Caulfield. Trading those assets for a stopgap solution is a short-sighted move that could set the rebuild back by years. Let's also consider the tactical implications of this decision. Under St. Louis, the Canadiens have adopted a system that emphasizes speed, transition play, and puck possession. While physical defenseman is crucial for protecting the net in late-game situations, they also need to fit into the broader framework of the team style. Ristolainen, for all his size, has often struggled with puck movement and defensive zone exits, areas where the Habs can't afford to be weak. In contrast, a player like Whitecloud has shown ability to make smart, simple plays under pressure, ensuring that the team doesn't get bogged down in its own end. From a coaching perspective, the fit matters just as much as a physical profile, and Hughes must weigh that carefully as he evaluates his options. Looking at the bigger picture, this situation is a microcosm of the challenges facing the Canadiens as they navigate the delicate balance between immediate competitiveness and long-term growth. Every decision Hughes makes now will have ripple effects that could be felt for years. Does he prioritize a quick fix to bolster the team's playoff chances, potentially at the expense of future assets? Or does he stay the course, trusting that the right player can be found at the right price, even if it means enduring some growing pains in the short term? It's a test of patience, of vision, and of nerve, qualities that will define whether this rebuild succeeds or stalls. Historically, the Canadiens have faced similar crossroads before. Think back to the early 2000s, when the team often struggled to balance the need for veteran presence with the development of young talent. Moves like acquiring Sheldon Soray brought physicality and leadership, but often at the cost of flexibility in the salary cap or draft capital. The lessons of those years should serve as a cautionary tale for Hughes. Building a sustainable contender requires discipline, even when the pressure to win now is immense. The Habs fan base, passionate and demanding as ever, deserves a team that competes with heart, but not at the expense of a brighter tomorrow. So where does this leave us? The Canadiens are at a pivotal moment, both in their season and in their broader journey as a franchise. The defensive issues and late-game scenarios are real, and they must be addressed if the team hopes to make a serious push for the postseason. But the solution doesn't lie in caving to the Flyers' outrageous demands for Ristolainen. It lies in finding the right player, a Zach Whitecloud, a Luke Shen, or someone of that ilk, who can bring the necessary toughness without sacrificing the future. Kent Hughes has shown a steady hand so far in his tenure as GM, and this is his chance to prove that he can navigate the treacherous waters of the NHL trade market with both cunning and restraint. As we look ahead, the implications of this decision extend far beyond the current roster. It's about setting a precedent for how the Canadiens operate in the modern NHL. Will they be a team that panics under pressure, overpaying for middling talent in a desperate bid for relevance? Or will they be a franchise that builds methodically, brick by brick, until they've constructed a powerhouse capable of sustained success? The answer to that question could shape the identity of this team for the next decade. I want to hear your take on this. If you were in Kent Hughes' shoes, would you roll the dice on a blockbuster trade for Ristolainen, even if it means giving up a first-round pick and a top prospect? Or would you hold firm, scouring the market for a battle-tested, cost-effective defender who can get the job done without breaking the bank? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's debate the best path forward for our beloved Habs. This is more than just a trade rumor. It's a defining moment for the future of Montreal hockey.